Welcome everybody to our special regional council meeting of December 8th. Please be advised that today's meeting is available for the public to attend virtually and is being streamed and recorded. We do have petition here today for us. We have Zach Venna with Banneken Travel and Tourism with the presentation. Turn it over to you, Zach. We'll do a couple introductions. Got myself, Councillor Andrews, got Councillor Growing over here to my right. We'll continue down.
Beth Vanderstein, Chamber of Commerce and Chair of the Tourism Advisory Committee.
Krista Vanderstein, Regional Development Officer.
Jaylene McIver, Corporate Manager.
Scott Barry, CEO with the Northern Rockies.
And we also have a few members in our gallery. Over to you, Zach.
All right, thank you all. I'm just going to share my screen here and we will get into the presentation. All right, everybody seeing the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality 5-year tourism strategy blue slide?
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right. Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me here today. It's been a pleasure to be working on this project over the past few months, really getting to know your region, the destination, the opportunities that are in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality. So excited after all our work at Banneken and with members of the community, members of council. We've really had an opportunity to explore and look at what we could be doing over the next 5 years to maximize what tourism can deliver for the region. And so today I'm going to be presenting that 5-year strategy, an overview of it. You'll be presented with a full strategy with all the action plan and details as we going forward. But for now, we just wanted to be sure to get in front of you all to present where we've arrived at and what our plan is. So without further ado, I'll walk through it. Feel free to raise your hand if you have questions. And of course, there will be a Q&A opportunity after. So let's just start with what our strategy development goals here were. The methodology had 3 phases. I won't go into all the details of it. I know many of you have been briefed or if not quite involved with this over the time that we've been working on this strategy. So phase 1 was our research, our consultation and engagement period. That's where we were looking into background documents. That's when we were doing our surveys, our workshops, our interviews with many of the stakeholders and the key informants of the region. Of course, we brought all that information together during our analysis period. And of course, from the analysis, from all the information we gathered, we turned that into tourism strategy development and delivery, which brings us to where we are today, happily, which is at the delivery phase of this tourism strategy. So let's take a look through the strategy here. What were some of our goals? Well, the goal of the Tourism Northern Rockies 2022 to 2027 tourism strategy is really at its core to foster a culture of tourism in the region. It's the ultimate goal of developing a right environment, which to launch a destination stewardship organization. We'll get into that momentarily. And the role of that DSO will be to carry the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality forward into a thriving and, importantly here, sustainable tourism future. So over the next 5 years, tourism-related efforts and initiatives must focus on building a strong foundation for the tourism industry. And the core of the strategy is represented by the action plan, which is meant to be employed as an actionable roadmap to take the region from its current tourism state to the ultimate vision of the strategy. So when we set out to build this plan, we wanted something truly actionable, something that wasn't just high level, wasn't just theoretical ideas. We wanted something that we could basically go through and check off, we've done this to achieve this. And so that's what we've built out in the action plan. So as I mentioned, Destination Stewardship Organization is one of the main goals of this project. So just to give you a little bit more insight into what that is, a DSO, they're not dissimilar from a destination marketing organization, or shorthand in the industry, a DMO. However, a DSO's priorities and the organization itself differ in some ways from a traditional DMO, whose main goal, of course, is marketing. A DSO is an organization which local communities, governmental agencies, non-governmental organizations, other business sectors, and the tourism sector, they all come together to take what we're calling a multi-stakeholder approach to maintaining cultural, environmental, economic, and aesthetic integrity of their country, region, or town. The core programming around promotion and marketing of the destination remain important for a DSO in the same way that they're kind of central to what a DMO does. But the activities and associated messaging focus primarily on developing and promoting the destination based on sustainable tourism values. So that's destination protections, on community benefits, and seeking out those potential visitors who share these same values. So while a DMO might try to market, let's say, in a little more mass way, a DSO is going to be focused on drawing in the right visitors for the destination who will help improve the community, of course, help improve the economy, but understand the values of the region. Now, this is new, but it's not an entirely untested approach to destination management and marketing. As an example, Sonoma County Tourism in California, which sees about 10.8 million day and overnight visitors per year, so a significant destination by all accounts, they shifted to becoming a DSO back in 2019. And they did this because they found that their destination was being overwhelmed by visitors who perhaps didn't have the same values, didn't have the same outlook, didn't have the same desires. And also they just recognized that they can't just be promoting to bring people in, maximize the economic opportunity without taking serious consideration for the stewardship, environmental, and otherwise of what they were doing. And so, with a destination such as the Northern Rockies, where all of these things, where community and environment are so crucial, to the tourism offering, but also just crucial to the community itself, as something that we need to be thinking about. So, and it's also, there's a marketing element to this. Quite frankly, it's not just the idea of, okay, we call it a DSO because it's a shift in our priorities of promoting the destination. But no, there's also a marketing element to it because putting yourselves out there as a stewardship organization starts to communicate a value of the community, of the destination, right? As destination travelers are becoming increasingly aware of the potential harm that comes with tourism. And I think the pandemic has certainly underscored that further than it ever was before, even we were trending that way already. So tourism entities of all kinds are going to be increasingly shifting their marketing and promotional model to focus on things like regenerative travel opportunities, on sustainability, on conservation, on positive community impact. So this is basically an opportunity to message without even needing to put a message out there, but it simply underlies that this is a destination that believes in tourism being done in a sustainable way, in a regenerative way, in a way that respects conservation and of course impacts the community in a positive way. And of course, we have to talk about, to provide some context to what we're talking about here. This is a strategy that will, fingers crossed at this point, be delivered in the wake of COVID-19 or in the come down of COVID-19. And there really isn't a single DMO or an association of municipality office in the world that was really prepared for the massive economic impact of the crisis that would have on the industry. And so, as it says here, needless to say, executing a 5-year tourism strategy in these uncertain times is no small task. And as we're learning right now here, the beginning of December, we're still not through with this pandemic. We still have uncertain future. We're still not entirely sure what the future of travel and tourism is going to look like. So it's going to require some agility, some creativity, and resourcefulness in not only the planning of it as we have to date, but in the delivery of it. So it's going to take some willingness to take some calculated risk. You're going to need to welcome some new ideas, as well as the desire to commit the necessary resources, time, and effort into the implementation of the strategy, because a strategy is only as good as the execution of it. You can have a clear, perfect, well-designed strategy. If it's poorly executed, it just, then the value of the strategy is not there, and vice versa works almost the same way. You can have a strategy that might not be all that well outlined, but if the people on the ground, if the people behind it really get their hands dirty and want to make it work, then usually it works. So, as much as the strategy, I've had a great time and great conversations, and it's been really interesting to build, it does come down to, is there willingness, is there resources to execute on it? So as I was mentioning off the top, this is an action-based plan, not a theory-based plan, not an idea-based plan. We want actions here. And the action plan's goals are to increase local enthusiasm for tourism and increase awareness of the potential economic benefits it can bring to the region. So we're talking about with Buyin. We're talking about better aligning the tourism sector with any incoming natural resources sectors. We want to better align stakeholders and improve stakeholder engagement and communications. We also want to observe safeguards to ensure a sustainable tourism sector. We want to provide space for and support to First Nations interested in further participating in the tourism sector in the region. Of course, we want to encourage increased resources allocated to developing tourism, further develop experience and attractions, and develop a strong destination brand that resonates effectively with all markets and increase visitation from those targeted markets, of course. All right, so the strategy is designed to address the following 6 priorities. These priorities were drawn from our research, all of our background. So they were identified as the key themes that will be central to the development of an effective tourism strategy for the region. So they will be resource allocation, stakeholder engagement, resident buy-in and support, sustainable destination development, the tourism workforce, and finally, branding and marketing. So these are the 6 pillars, the 6 themes that will be central to the development of the strategy. And as you look through the action plan, you'll notice that each of these has been identified. Sometimes some of the actions tick off more than one of the themes identified here. But these were always the focus. We want to be working on one of these with every action, at least one of these with every action taken throughout this strategy. So let me just expand upon that a little bit if I could. Resource allocation, key theme number 1. What does that mean? Well, we're talking about a meaningful infusion of resources. Both human resources and financial resources will be required in order for the region to begin building the foundation of sustainable tourism industry. That's from a position of strength, and we always want to be building from a position of strength, of course. The current economic circumstances require strategic decision-making when it comes to allocating these resources, and as such, a prioritization system has been built into the action plan to help prioritize actions based on the resources available. That is to say, and we can get into this, but it's basically saying we need this, we could have this, this would be nice to have. We want to make sure that, once again, this is an actionable plan that is willing and able to react to the realities on the ground, as we're still dealing with the pandemic, and who knows what we could be dealing with in the future in many ways. So we want to be able to prioritize and understand which actions must be taken for the success and which would just be nice to have, and decide resources based on that. Continuing with resource allocation, the strategy requires that those tasked with executing it will consistently underscore the need for operating budgets to help ensure sustainability, and persistently emphasize the importance of downtown revitalization and consistent tourism-related infrastructure. We're talking about clean sidewalks, be they uniform benches, well-maintained parks and public spaces, branded signage, and that's all to increase what we call curb appeal, right? Just the visual aesthetic. And that's to further entice visitors to stop, which is of particular importance to primarily drive destinations like the Northern Rockies. This is something that people will keep in mind. So that's once again a piece of the resource allocation theme. Number 2, stakeholder engagement, and I think this one is extremely important. Stakeholder engagement is crucial in building a sustainable tourism industry, no matter where you're trying to build a sustainable tourism industry. This is where you really are going to have your success or your failure. So at the launch of the strategy and action plan, stakeholder engagement in the region is extremely limited at this moment. Because of these circumstances, the action plan places a particularly high priority on the following. We've put actions designed to build engagement and connection amongst the region's tourism stakeholders. We want to be encouraging the sharing of ideas, of best practices, of tactics, and creating a general cohesion, coordination, and community amongst the industry stakeholders. Key theme number 3 brings us to resident buy-in and support. This strategy has been built on the premise that a good place to live is a good place to visit, right? So while resident buy-in and support are not necessary to build a profitable tourism industry, we've seen this in plenty of places. I'm coming to you from Toronto here. We've got Niagara Falls nearby. I wouldn't say that resident buy-in and support go hand in hand with what is a very profitable tourism industry. But we want to make sure that these elements are there because it is absolutely essential when laying the bedrock of a sustainable tourism strategy. If we want something to sustain, we want people to be buying in and comfortable with it. This is going to be important. Because residents are important ambassadors for tourism in the region. That's just the reality of it, especially in a community like the Northern Rockies, where people who are visiting are going to be encountering locals regularly. And for residents to be able to be ambassadors and speak positively and excitedly and be able to point people in the right direction to those tourism experiences, it's really hugely valuable. And finally, building local appreciation for the tourism assets that already exist in the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality and cultivating buy-in for the value of tourism as an economic driver for the region is going to be very important for the success of this strategy over the next 5 years and beyond that. So resident buy-in and support, very key as well. That's why we've identified that here. So to help ensure the success, the strategy recommends a nurturing of pride in place by recognizing what residents value about the region, by consistently acknowledging the history of Treaty 8 and Canada's colonizer history with a constant goal of actively participating in reconciliation, by prioritizing land acknowledgements when hosting all events, activities, and initiatives, and really by celebrating and representing local values within the tourism offering, especially when it comes to brand and marketing. Continuing with resident buy-in and support, we want to be able to provide space for all communities, even when they are not currently part of the tourism industry, to lead the tourism conversation, not have the terms of tourism development dictated to them, no matter the sincerity of the intention. We want to abstain from asking First Nations representatives to sign memorandums of understanding or equivalent when participating in work and visioning groups. Instead, simply, we want open discussions for all communities as part of this plan. Key theme number 4, sustainable development. From the outset, the strategy has focused on sustainable destination development as kind of the linchpin to everything else within it, right? So strategy, just to kind of give you an opportunity to understand what I'm talking about when I'm saying sustainable, we're defining sustainability in the context of the strategy as quality over quantity, right? And that's for everything. When we're talking about visitors, when we're talking about experiences, and we're talking about resources, we're looking to focus on quality visitors, quality experiences, quality resources over vast numbers of visitors, just a plethora of experiences that may not have any connection to one another, and just, well, I mean, nobody's going to argue with quantity of resources, but we want to make sure that when we're allocating resources, we're doing so in a qualitative fashion. Of course, enhancing regional spirit and success, which we're talking about a lot in resident buy-in as well, respecting all people in the environment, and creating long-term plans that benefit residents, business owners, and visitors alike. So the goal is to really ensure that the municipality is enhanced by tourism development across the region in order to help improve quality of life for all residents and increase the value of local tourism experiences for visitors, while also ensuring the protection and enrichment of the local environment. So in order to support this goal, the strategy has made the recommendation of celebrating the region's authentic cultures, heritage, and identity, all of them, including significant industry and resource-based events, ensuring the benefits of tourism existed beyond simply Fort Nelson. There's a large region with a lot to offer. We want to further engage in travel trade activities, and we want to secure adequate budget to host media and outbound operators, because this will not only increase destination knowledge at the trade level, but it's also going to support regional operators by facilitating new introductions and increase opportunity to further grow their tourism businesses. And finally, key theme number 5 takes us to the tourism workforce. So the region's tourism workforce needs to be nurtured in order to execute a successful strategy. We're looking at the seasonal nature of work in tourism. It tends to create challenges for many destinations around the world. And this is particularly true of destinations like the Northern Rockies, where tourism has not served as a significant economic driver in the region as of yet. So it makes sense that the tourism workforce infrastructure may not be quite in place as necessary yet. So further training and education for those individuals already in the tourism workforce will be needed to be developed. That's hand in hand with providing opportunities for those not currently in the tourism sector to acquire the necessary training and skills to effectively work in the sector, right? And finally, key theme number 6, our branding and marketing. It's all about promoting the destination to visitors, but it requires an easy to recognize and understand destination brand and practical marketing plan. The plan includes concerted effort to ensure the destination brand is infused across all potential visitor touch points, that stakeholders recognize and understand the brand. That's key in establishing the brand. And the marketing initiatives only make promises that the local tourism sector can keep. Expectations must meet the experience, right? And that's very key when it comes to branding and marketing. We've been very aware of that as we've built this plan, is you want to be promoting a message that will be received, and then it will be actually what visitors encounter when they visit the region. Because one thing you don't want is to make promises that you can't keep. That destroys a brand pretty quickly. And finally, target marketing the destination to desired visitors. So as I was talking a little bit about earlier, it's those that will respect locals and the local environment and behave in a way residents want visitors to behave while exploring the destination. That's going to be key to maintaining a sustainable tourism sector. That's for the community to continue to want tourists to come into the region, as well as simply for the environmental and conservation upkeep of a very valuable region. So brand and marketing strategy for the first few years is an add-on to the strategy. It's already been delivered. It's including things such as brand pillars, brand emotional benefits, marketing theme, visitor personas to target, and outline of a big campaign that has been built by Banneken as well as we were working on this project. So they were built hand in hand with one another. So the strategy and future marketing efforts really speak to one another. All right, so that's kind of give you a higher level idea of what the strategy is looking to achieve. As I've been saying from the top, though, we wanted to make sure in discussions of building this plan that it wasn't just kind of what I just gave you, which is kind of loftier goals that are more an idea than they are something necessarily actionable. We wanted to get down and be able to say, do this, this, and this. So the action plan that we put together details the actions recommended in order to build a firm foundation, as we've been talking about from the beginning. We want to build a firm foundation on which to begin developing a sustainable tourism industry for the region. So as I mentioned, each action has an associated key theme or themes and has been classified based on the following priority levels. So you've got your must-have. As I mentioned, these are actions that are vital to the success of the strategy, and they've been identified as such. You should have. These are actions that are not necessarily vital in the pure sense of the word, but will be a significant value or adding significant value to the project. And of course, the could have. These are nice to have initiatives that will certainly bolster what we're trying to achieve, but they'll have a smaller impact if they're not executed. So as resource allocation is being determined, as we're measuring these things, this is how we'll determine which actions must, should, and could be delivered on throughout the strategy. So I'll take you through kind of the action plan, not point by point, but in a year-by-year basis. So year one, we're calling laying the groundwork. This is really about building that foundation. Year one of the action plan is going to focus on laying the groundwork on which to build the foundation of a sustainable tourism sector. Actions designated for year one, they primarily focus on forging connections between stakeholders, on starting to cultivate that pride of place I keep talking about amongst residents, and in these unprecedented times, recovering or continuing to survive the COVID-19 pandemic. So those tasked with implementing the strategy and action plan, they need to be empowered and encouraged from the outset. And early enthusiasm for the strategy and potential for the sector should be celebrated. Year one also will introduce the first of several what we're calling evergreen actions to be repeated annually throughout the duration of the strategy. So when you're looking at the action plan, year one has a lot in it. And that is largely because a number of those pieces, which have been identified as our evergreens, they will repeat year over year. As the strategy gets built out. And some of them are actions simply to be taken in year one as we begin laying that groundwork. Looking at year two, that's reset and reinvent. So with the initial groundwork laid in year one, year two is going to seek to take the action plan past the table setting phase as the pandemic is expected to be behind us by that point. And it's going to be resetting and reinventing. And so you can truly begin again as the world opens back up in the wake of the worldwide shutdown of travel and tourism. That's our hope. This requires, of course, the setting of expectations for visitors if things have changed, as well as encouraging more people from the targeted markets to visit the region and further develop the region's tourism product offering. As tourism will hopefully open more widely than it has been in a few years, stakeholder engagement and cultivating resident buy-in remains a key focus in year two, as it was in year one, frankly, as it remains throughout the duration of this 5-year plan. Year three, we're talking about maintaining that momentum. We laid the groundwork, we started to revitalize. Year three is about just continuing that good work. It seeks to maintain the momentum built up from the launch of the strategy, and the evergreen action should be revitalized and expanded upon at this phase. We'll have a couple of years of repeating some of those actions. We'll have learned from successes and challenges. So as I mentioned throughout this presentation, the strategy needs to be amenable. It needs to be ready to move. And so it needs to be constantly examine what worked, what didn't, why did it work, why didn't it work. So that's key. Once we get to year three, we'll have enough data, enough information, enough experience from those first 2 years. Year three also will include a number of actions designed to encourage further exploration and development of potential new tourism offerings and experiences for the region. So we're starting to get to a real expansion phase here. It also marks an important phase in Northern Rockies' approach to informing and actioning local tourism initiatives, as the region, or as the NRRMTAC will shift its membership model, and responsibilities at that point will more ideally serve the strategy and the sector after we've spent a couple years getting these things in line. Year four, we start to look towards future planning. I mean, as we've had experience building out this strategy, these strategies take a while. And so around year four, it's time to start looking at not just the successes and the challenges that the strategy has faced and the region has faced as a destination to this point, but also starting to think about the next 5 years. You know, the strengths and successes are examined, further developed and built upon, and new experiences and initiatives are going to start to be introduced at this point. As the first 3 years, the action plan focused primarily on building, as I mentioned. Year four will introduce forward-looking sections in advance of the completion of the strategy in year five, and the need to have those next steps in place at that point. And finally, year 5, we're talking about regeneration. Year 5 is an evolution year in the action plan, with the industry underpinning, hopefully complete following 5 years of foundational actions, setting the stage for the full strength of the local sector to begin its next phase at this point. We're talking about, we've got strong local leadership in place to take us to that next level. We've got new products and experiences available for people. We've got a committed tourism ambassadors after working on over the past 4+ years of resident engagement and buy-in from stakeholders. Now we have tremendous tourism ambassadors and highly engaged stakeholder base that's all ready to take that next step after 5 years of building out this sort of foundation, building it up and getting it ready to launch into the next phase, which I would say, is the exciting phase of, we've got our foundation, now let's build the house upon it. So that's it for my presentation portion of this. I'll now turn it back over and I'll stop sharing my screen. And thank you very much for letting me go just straight through for 25 minutes or so there.
All right. Well, yeah, thank you very much, Zach. That was very informational. I don't think I have any questions. Councillor Gerwin, did you have any?
No, unfortunately, I didn't, get through the whole plan. So yeah, I was tied up yesterday, so I didn't even get a chance to look at it till this morning. So I would appreciate some time to actually further review the plan and then come back with questions.
Have any comments in the gallery? Questions? Yeah, for sure. Ms. Vandersteen?
Thank you. I'd just like to comment that one of the things that became really clear in all of the conversations that I was involved in and the workshops that Zach put on was how important it was to residents and to the people I spoke to about protecting the values that Zach. So I'm really appreciative that that came out so clearly, because that was a lot of our discussion, that tourism is important and we want to see visitors, but we also want to protect our diverse environment that we have here. So just kind of wanted to put a little focus on that.
Thank you. I guess actually one thing that did jump out at me is currently we have a lack of camping areas up highway, which I'm hoping to get more, but in the transitional period, we've got this stewardship going on where we're getting more visitors coming. Is there any ways to kind of mitigate potential not having enough spots for people? Because we could have a bunch of people come up and now we're detrimenting possible local travel outside and then having more people come in, and then you got people alongside the highway as opposed to in designated camping areas. Just wondering if that, I'm sure it's been an issue before in other areas.
Yeah, no, certainly it has been. And that's a big part of what we're talking about when we're talking about inviting the right people. So it really comes down to, in a large part, messaging and the outreach. Now, in the wake of the pandemic, frankly, there's a real chance, there's real risk of that continuing to be an issue. We're seeing destinations around me here, like Prince Edward County, for instance, who have been experiencing that. And it becomes quite challenging, and it's going to be undoubtedly a challenge in the post-pandemic era as people flood to some areas more quickly. But that again comes down to really about messaging, about invitation in its own way. Who are you messaging the region to? What kind of visitors are you looking to bring in? From a practical standpoint, it can become simply about, communicating with council, communicating with the organizations to basically draw those lines when they need to be drawn. It's really about understanding and appreciating, what the community needs and being able to make those moves. And from a legal standpoint, it's tough to tell people not to come, but it's really about how are you going to message this? When are you going to start messaging it, getting ahead of it? And so that's what in the marketing plan that goes with this as well, but in the actions, it's about making sure that if we can start to build these stakeholder engagements with each other, if the tourism sector is kind of working as one instead of as silos, as it sort of is at this moment, there's better opportunity to mitigate at least the worst of what that push can be. But that being said, it will likely remain a challenge for the next couple of years as the strategy takes hold, that people are going to be kind of reaching out to regions like yours in big ways. And so that is going to be a challenge. It's going to be something that needs to be considered by stakeholders as as this plan is built out. How do we mitigate that? What is the best way to kind of tell people not to come or to invite only the correct people. So I can't say that there's actions within that will get people off the side of the road and into more camping grounds as you wait, but in building hopefully a strong stakeholder network and in having a tourism sector that's kind of all paddling in the same direction, you have the best opportunity to kind of mitigate some of the worst of that groundswell.
Thank you. Councillor Gerwin.
Yeah, so as you were speaking, something occurred to me, and my apologies if it's somewhere addressed here in the plan, but I don't think you spoke to it today. Does the plan address how to expand opportunities for service providers to come into the Northern Rockies to provide like an experiential tourist product? Because we currently have a couple, and I don't know whether that is currently meeting the need now. And thinking in terms of future, does the plan address how we might be able to do that?
Yeah, and I think recalling off the top of my head, that's in about year 3 when the travel trade part of it really kicks in. There are pieces of it, I believe, in the action plan before that. But yes, there is a focus on, or there are actions in there designed to bring these people in, some of the inbound operators in, to better leverage what, their opportunities in the region are tremendous, and with the right people getting a chance to come in and experience it, I think they can build out some great products. So yes, there are actions in there meant to help that.
Okay, I read that inbound, but I'm wondering if from a local level, so that we're not necessarily encouraging or discouraging people from outside of the community to develop products for our community, but locally, what can be done, or does the plan address what we could maybe do to encourage local people to actually go in that direction or begin in that direction or that?
Yeah, so there are a number of actions in there as well. Workshops, forums meant to bring, there's a few elements that have been specifically identified that are some of the stronger offerings of the region. And so either opportunities in their strength or that are currently doing well. So there are a number of workshops built in meant to really bring in local people into the next level of building out opportunities for tourism sector to join, start their own businesses, build off of businesses that already exist.
Okay, thanks.
Yes.
I
Ms.
just had
McIver?
a message from Councillor Penny. He apologizes. He wasn't able to join the virtual meeting, but he was watching the live stream and he just wanted to comment that it was an excellent presentation and he appreciates the dialogue. So. We have DCAO Lavelle is attending virtually and Mayor Foster's on his way in now. He just joined.
If we don't have any more questions for Zach, I think we can let you go. I just want to say again that I really like the look of the presentation as well. It was very eye-catching. I have it printed out in black and white, but definitely color on the iPad. The step forward and the way we're going, I look forward to progressing with this plan for sure. Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much. It's been great working on this project, and yeah, looking forward to see how the strategy carries you all forward. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll welcome Mayor Foster. Did you have any questions or comments, Mayor?
No, I'm sorry. I was in a Resource Municipalities Coalition, so I missed the entire presentation. Regret that, but it sounds like everybody was very impressed with the presentation. So that's great, and I'll look forward to the information when I get back to the Northern Rockies.
And I think that concludes everything we have for our meeting today then. Yeah. Yeah, so I'll call the meeting adjourned. Thank you everybody for coming.